Well. Michigan and Sharon Moore bounced back and beat the Washington Huskies 24-7 on this glorious Saturday. What a great afternoon. As deer are jumping into my garden. That's all right, everything is done anyway. Bryce Underwood finished 21 of 27. That's 78%, by far his best game completion percentage-wise this season. He had 230 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. Jordan Marshall, Michigan's running back, finished with 25 carries for 133 yards and a rushing touchdown. 7 different people caught the ball for Michigan in this game. DeMond Williams Jr., the quarterback for Washington, threw 3 interceptions and fumbled on a 4th down sack by Derek Moore. Washington finished with just 40 yards rushing. Michigan's defense was scaring me early on in this game, giving up big plays, big back-breaking plays. But eventually, they constricted this Washington offense. This win did not come without some injury, though. Physical game in this one. First of all, Justice Haynes did not play. Klein and Hansen at tight end, both were out. Rod Moore did not play. Evan Link was carted off the field. Brandon Hillman went out with injury. Ernest Hausman went out as well. At least he walked off the field on his own power. But this game started back and forth defensive battle. 7-7 game at halftime. In the first quarter, Michigan had a 3rd and 9, and Deacon Tonelli had a 5-yard catch, so it was a 3 and out, and it was only a 35-yard punt to Washington's 38-yard line. Washington had the ball, and on 3rd and 5, Williams had a 6-yard scramble. Coleman had a 4-yard run. DeGraff had a 10-yard screen, and then there was a false start backing them up. Jair Hill dropped what would have been a pick 6, and on 3rd and 12, Zeke Berry had the great pass breakup, and they had to punt the ball, and it was a touchback. Michigan had the ball, and Jordan Marshall started his big day with an 8-yard run. Then Morgan had a 7-yard slant. Marshall had a 9-yard catch out of the backfield. McCulley had an 11-yard reverse. And then there was a holding call on Michigan, a phantom holding call. Even Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt said there was nothing there. Marshall then had a 4-yard catch, and on 3rd and 16, Marshall had a 15-yard catch. And it's this point when Evan Link was carted off the field, and you thought maybe with that momentum, some juice from the crowd, on 4th and 1, we would get the conversion. Michigan is now like 1 of 10 on the season after this game on 4th down because Morgan dropped the ball again. He was at the end of the line of scrimmage. He could have had a big play, but no, he had to drop the ball. Washington had the ball at their 33-yard line. Then Boston had a 48-yard bomb from DeMond Williams, and because Zeke Berry fell down and Boston came up with the ball, but on 3rd and 9 later in the drive, it was incomplete, and they missed a 36-yard field goal. Michigan had the ball, and Tonelli had a 5-yard catch. Marshall had a 5-yard run, then a 7-yard run. Then Marshall had a 7-yard catch, and then McCulley had a 15-yard play-action catch. And then Zach Marshall, the tight end, came in, had a 19-yard catch and run, and Andrew Marsh with the 22-yard touchdown on that middle screen in the middle of the field. Untouched almost to the end zone. Beautiful. 7-0 Michigan. Then the second quarter began. Washington's Coleman had a 5-yard catch. Hausman had a tackle for loss on Williams, and on 3rd and 10, though, Coleman had a 27-yard slant. We kept leaving the middle of the field wide open, and they were taking advantage early. Muhammad had a 6-yard run. Williams a 4-yard run, and then a false start backed him up again. Muhammad had a 6-yard catch, and on 3rd and 9, another false start backed him up. But on 3rd and 14, Jayshon Barham got in there for a tackle for loss. They punted to Michigan's 7-yard line. Marshall had a 12-yard catch. Zach Marshall, that is the tight end. Underwood had an 11-yard scramble. Marsh with a 20-yard one-handed grab just stuck his hand out there, and luckily the ball stuck to it. And then Marshall had an 8-yard run. On 3rd and 2, Marshall had a 10-yard delay run up the middle. A false start on Michigan cost them, though. On 3rd and 14, Marshall had a 4-yard run to set up a 48-yard field goal. And then the announcers jinx. They were saying he's the best kicker in the nation. And, of course, Vada missed it. Washington then had the ball at their 30, and they had a 13-play, 70-yard drive that took 4.5 minutes off the clock to tie this game right before halftime. Coleman had a 6-yard run. Eldredge a 6-yard catch. Coleman 9-yard catch and run. On 3rd and 1, Coleman had a 4-yard run. Roebuck had that 5-yard catch. On 3rd and 2, Boston had a 4-yard catch. And then Derek Moore had a 9-yard sack. All right, let's get him off the field now. Nope. Vines Bright right after that. 31-yard catch right up the seam, right down the middle, wide open. Coleman then had a 5-yard run, and then Vines Bright had a 5-yard catch. And then Coleman put an exclamation point on this drive with a 1-yard touchdown run with 40 seconds left. Dr. Blitz kept letting Washington stay in this game with back-breaking first downs. Michigan only had 69 rushing yards, but Bryce was 15 of 20 for 151 yards and a touchdown at halftime. Demond Williams was 14 of 19 for 155 yards. Very similar stats there. Washington only had 32 rushing yards, though. So then the third quarter began, and Washington had the ball, and Michigan got a 3-and-out. They punted to Michigan's 40. Then Michigan had the ball, and Andrew Marsh, joined the party with a 7-yard catch. Then a penalty on Michigan for an ineligible receiver downfield cost them a big play. Marshall had a 12-yard run, and on 3rd and 6, Zach Marshall had that 15-yard catch and run to get the first down. Morgan had a 13-yard catch. On 3rd and 8, McCauley had a 6-yard slant. And here's another 4th down fail. On 4th and 2, Marshall got stood up at the 5-yard line, short of the line to gain, and it was a turnover on downs instead of kicking the field goal. Washington's Coleman had an 8-yard run. Then on 3rd and 1, Coleman had 2 yards, and then a holding on Washington was finally called in this game. DeGraff was wide open for 14 yards. On 3rd and 4, Boston had a 3-yard catch. On 4th and 1, they got their 4th down, a 3-yard run. Roebuck had a 5-yard screen. On 3rd and 6, though, it was an incomplete pass. Pressure got to Demond Williams. Luckily, because the guy was open, they had to punt, and it went to Michigan's 17-yard line. Then Michigan had a 3-and-out where Underwood had a 4-yard scramble on 3rd and 4. I thought he got it. He was ruled short of the line to gain. There was no review at all. They punted the ball to Washington's 18-yard line. Then the defense stepped up and started shutting off the middle of the defense, and Demond Williams was not expecting it because Cole Sullivan intercepted Williams and brought it back to Washington's 14-yard line. And the very next play, Jordan Marshall had a 14-yard touchdown run, and it was 14-7 Michigan. Then Washington's Roebuck had a 17-yard catch and run. Boston had a 16-yard catch. Oh, here we go again. But then Jimmy Roller, another Michigan linebacker, steps in front, intercepts Williams at Michigan's 38-yard line. Now we are entering the fourth quarter, and Michigan went on a 9-play, 62-yard drive that took 5.5 minutes off the clock. Marshall had a 5-yard run. On 3rd and 2, Marshall had 2 yards, then 4 yards. Then Underwood, he's still a freshman. He ran out of bounds behind the line of scrimmage for a loss of 5 yards. He was out of the pocket. He could have just threw the ball away, but he takes a loss. But he made up for it on the next play. On 3rd and 11, Underwood had a 28-yard rifle over a defender, past another guy, right to another tight end of Michigan, Deacon Tennelly. Marshall plowed ahead for 11 yards the next play, then a 4-yard run, and then an Underwood play-action rollout pass to Zach Marshall for a 10-yard touchdown was good. It was 21-7 Michigan. Coleman for Washington opened up their next drive with a 7-yard run, but on 3rd and 1, Trey Pierce had a tackle for loss, and on 4th and 3, Derek Moore got that sack fumble that created the turnover on downs. And the ball was at Washington's 17-yard line this time. Marshall had a 5-yard run on 3rd and 4, a 6-yard run, but then McLaughlin for Washington sacked Underwood. And then Marshall had a 4-yard run, and on 3rd and goal, Jasper Parker only mustered 2 yards. But the 26-yard field goal by Zvada was good this time, 24-7 Michigan. Washington got the ball one more time. Williams threw it deep, and Oden, Michigan's defender, fell down, and Boston was going to catch it. But no, he dropped it, and it went right into the hands of Oden, who was on the ground, for Damon Williams' 3rd interception of the day. It was at Washington's 29-yard line. And on 3rd and 6 for Michigan, Marshall had an 8-yard run. And then a holding on Michigan didn't matter because Underwood had a 17-yard keeper. Jasper Parker had a 6-yard run. Parker had a 5-yard run. And then Underwood went into victory formation and took the knee. And Michigan won this game 24-7. They had 17 unanswered points in the second half. And they were going up against a team that was outscoring opponents in the fourth quarter 80-10. We reversed that here. We reversed what happened last week. It's back on track. The blue-collar mentality and the shirt that Sharon wore during the press conference last week paid off. Thank you, everybody. Wow, what a game. What'd you think? Back to the old school Michigan, where we can do it all. We need people to get healthy again, though. Up next is at Michigan State, who's given up 38 points in their last 3 games to everybody and lost all 3 of those games. So we'll see. It's a rivalry. It's at their house. It's probably going to be at night. We'll see how that one goes next week. But I think Michigan finally found their identity. Just be balanced. Let Underwood sling it. Pound it when you need to. Back to reality, baby. Let's go. 5-2 now for the Michigan Wolverines. Go Blue.